This heartwarming love story takes us back to a time when the internet was just becoming popular among people. Back then, chat rooms were new and exciting. People would connect with strangers through different websites, using unique screen names instead of real identities. That's how many friendships began, without knowing each other's real names or personal details. And that's exactly what happens in this story. Two individuals, living in the same city, become close friends online without ever meeting in person. They talk freely, share their thoughts, and never feel the need to ask about each other's lives. All that mattered was the connection they shared through words. The story begins in Manhattan, where we meet a young woman named Kathleen. She owns a charming children's bookstore, once run by her mother, who has now passed away. Kathleen's life seems to be going well. Her bookstore is thriving, and kids love visiting not just for the books, but also because she tells them enchanting stories. She also has a boyfriend. This was the era when the internet was still new to the public. Websites and chat platforms were becoming the newest way to meet people. Everyone had a separate online ID, and that's how Kathleen got connected with a man named Joe in chat room. As their conversations grew, Kathleen and Joe found themselves drawn to each other's thoughts and words. They became close friends online. Early on, they agreed not to share real names or ask personal questions. They would only speak through their ID names. The only thing they knew was that they both lived in Manhattan and were in their 30s. Funny enough, since they lived in the same city, they crossed paths multiple times, completely unaware that the person walking by was the same one they were forming such a deep connection with online. Joe's full name is Joe Fox, and he belongs to a family that owns a nationwide chain of bookstores called Fox Books. He's sharp, strategic, and highly business-minded. His usual approach is to open massive, discounted bookstores right next to small, independent ones, offering coffee shops and plenty of offers, eventually driving the smaller stores out of business. And now, his next target is to open a big Fox Books outlet directly across from Kathleen's little bookstore. When construction begins, Kathleen's employees grow anxious. They warn her that once Fox Books opens, their store won't be able to survive the competition. But Kathleen remains confident. She believes in her mother's legacy, the charm of their store, and the loyalty of their customers. She reassures them that no corporate chain can replace what they have. However, the serious concern on her employees' faces starts to weigh on Kathleen. Later that evening, when she returns home, she finds her boyfriend constantly typing on his typewriter. The repetitive clacking starts to irritate her, and they end up arguing. But Kathleen, being the gentle soul she is, quickly regrets her harsh words. She never likes hurting anyone's feelings. Her heart is soft and empathetic. She always tries to understand others. On the other side, Joe also finds several things about his girlfriend that don't sit well with him, but he simply chooses to ignore them. Joe's father, who's been married 4 times, has young children from his latest marriage. Joe takes them out, and when he suggests going to see a movie, the kids insist on visiting the children's bookstore where they love listening to stories. Though Joe isn't thrilled, especially since his own massive bookstore is about to open across the street, he finally agrees. That's where he meets Kathleen for the first time. Neither of them realizes that they are actually each other's online friend. Kathleen warmly interacts with him and even asks his name. Joe gives his first name, but intentionally hides his last name because Kathleen, unaware of who he really is, keeps criticizing the new Fox Books store opening near her beloved shop. Days continue to pass, and Joe and Kathleen chat online every single day. They become such close friends that both hide these conversations from their real-life partners. Soon, the new Fox Books store finally opens across from Kathleen's shop. As expected, her loyal customers start drifting toward Joe's massive bookstore. This shift causes a serious blow to Kathleen's business. She tries everything she can to keep her store running like before, but nothing works. Eventually, the truth begins to sink in. Sooner or later, she might have to shut down the bookstore her mother once lovingly built. This thought weighs heavily on her heart. One evening, Kathleen attends a party with her boyfriend. Joe happens to be there too, and when he sees her, he instinctively hides his face, wanting to avoid a confrontation. But Kathleen spots him and realizes that he's the same Joe Fox who opened the big store, threatening her small one. She walks straight up to him and accuses him of spying, bringing kids to her store just to observe how she runs it. Joe is taken aback and snaps back, saying his company is a national chain with stores across the country. He says, "Why would I spy on a tiny shop that's about to shut down anyway?" Their argument gets tense, just as their respective partners show up. Joe's girlfriend happens to be a huge fan of Kathleen's boyfriend, who's a well-known writer. The two start talking excitedly, while Joe and Kathleen, frustrated, leave with their partners. That night, Joe can't sleep. He keeps thinking about how harshly he spoke to Kathleen. After his girlfriend falls asleep, he opens his laptop and messages his anonymous online friend, Kathleen, though he doesn't know it. He types, "I think I'm a terrible person. I hurt someone tonight." Kathleen, also upset, replies honestly, "When someone speaks to me like that, I never know what to say in the moment. But later, I lie awake all night, imagining the perfect comeback." Joe responds, "We're so different, you and I. Maybe you should give me your innocence, and I'll give you some of my boldness." Sharing their deepest feelings like this brings them comfort, and their bond only grows stronger. As time passes, their friendship deepens. They continue to cross paths in real life, glancing at each other but turning away. The fight they had at the party still lingers in both their hearts, keeping them distant, even as their connection online grows more intimate than ever. One day, Kathleen is at a store picking up a few things. When she gets to the cashier, her credit card is unexpectedly declined. The cashier refuses to take it, leaving Kathleen in an awkward spot. Just then, Joe happens to be nearby. Without hesitation, he walks over, uses his charm to calmly talk the cashier into accepting the card, and then quietly walks away, without waiting for thanks. Kathleen is left stunned. This is the same man who argued with her at the party, and yet here he was, stepping in to help her without saying a word. Meanwhile, Kathleen's bookstore continues to struggle. One night, while chatting online, she opens up to Joe about her business troubles and asks if he can offer any advice. Joe asks what kind of business she runs, but Kathleen reminds him of their rule, not to share personal details. If she had told him the truth, he would have realized that she's the owner of the little bookstore his company is competing against. Joe still encourages her, saying, "In business, you have to fight. Never give up." His words inspire her, giving her strength to push forward. She decides to stand up for what she believes in. She approaches her boyfriend and asks him to write an article in his newspaper, exposing how big chains like Fox Books are shutting down small, local businesses. The article gets published and creates a stir. People start protesting outside the Fox Books store, and the negative press begins to circulate. But despite the outcry and public sympathy for Kathleen, most customers still choose Fox Books for its large discounts and convenience. Kathleen feels crushed. In her frustration and sadness, she messages Joe and tells him that she's ready to meet in person. Earlier, Joe had asked her to meet, but she had declined. Now, she herself wants to see him. Joe is excited and hopeful. Kathleen shares the address of a restaurant where they can meet. Joe decides to go, bringing a friend along. Deep down, he's starting to realize that he may have feelings for this woman, even though she's still just an anonymous name on a screen. Joe arrives at the restaurant with his friend, nervous but curious. He asks his friend to peek inside and see what the woman looks like. When his friend comes back, stunned, he tells Joe that the woman waiting inside is none other than Kathleen. Joe can't believe it. He's frozen, overwhelmed with guilt, because now he truly realizes how deeply his actions have affected her life and her business. Inside, Kathleen keeps glancing at the door, waiting for her online friend to show up. When she finally spots Joe walking in, she hides her face, hoping he doesn't see her. But Joe approaches her table and sits down in front of her. Kathleen, still waiting, tells him someone is supposed to meet her. Joe calmly replies, "When he comes, I'll leave." Joe begins talking to her, gently trying to connect, but Kathleen isn't in the mood. She's angry and disappointed. Her eyes keep drifting toward the door, hoping her mystery friend will arrive. Joe finally says, "Maybe the person you're waiting for isn't coming. That it's a nerve." Kathleen snaps back. "He's not like you. He's kind. He's honest. And if he didn't come, there must be a reason." Joe quietly leaves. Kathleen, realizing she may have been too harsh, feels bad. She waits for a long time, but when her online friend doesn't show up, She returns home feeling low and disheartened. She checks her inbox. No new messages. Meanwhile, Joe is filled with guilt and inner conflict. He knows now that he's the one responsible for Kathleen's bookstore struggles. Kathleen eventually messages him, asking why he didn't show up. Joe replies, "I can't tell you why right now, but I promise I will meet you soon. Until then, I'll keep talking to you here." Kathleen has finally accepted the harsh truth. She must close her mother's beloved bookstore. She's heartbroken. One evening, she tries to share her pain with her boyfriend, but he barely listens. For the first time, she loses her patience with him. He doesn't take it well and tells her he's ending the relationship. Unbeknownst to Kathleen, he was already seeing a TV anchor and had been waiting for a chance to move on. Despite the breakup, Kathleen feels a strange sense of relief. Deep in her heart, she's falling in love with her online friend, the one who truly listens. On the other side, Joe gets stuck in an elevator with his girlfriend. Frustrated and anxious, he tries to talk, to express himself, but all she cares about is her makeup. In that moment, Joe realizes she's not the one for him. They break up too. Joe finally admits to himself what he's been feeling all along. He's in love with his online friend. With Kathleen, Kathleen decides to sell every book in her store at a 40% discount. Soon, the shelves are completely empty. But for her, this store is not just a business. It's a part of her late mother's legacy. Closing it down feels like letting go of a piece of her heart. She becomes deeply emotional and doesn't step outside her home for several days. One day, Joe shows up at her door. Though she doesn't want to open it, he gently insists. Finally, she opens the door. Joe has brought her favorite flowers and sincerely apologizes for being the reason her bookstore had to close. He asks, "Did your friend ever show up that day at the restaurant?" Kathleen tells him that the man was her online friend and that she doesn't really know who he is. Joe encourages her, "You should ask him to meet again. Life's too short not to take chances." Something about that feels right. That night, Kathleen messages her online friend, saying, "I want to meet you." He replies warmly, "Why not? Let's meet soon. I'm finishing up a project, and once it's done, I'll be there." The next day, Joe meets Kathleen again and asks if she messaged her friend. She nods and says they'll be meeting soon. Joe jokes, "What if he's making excuses? What if he's married?" This upsets Kathleen. That night during their chat, she directly asks her online friend, "Are you married?" But he doesn't answer. The next day, Joe visits her again and brings it up, saying maybe her friend didn't answer because he is married. Kathleen finds his remark strange. Joe has now started seeing her every day. He tries to hint, in subtle ways, that he has feelings for her. But Kathleen, although aware, ignores the signs. Her heart still belongs to her anonymous online friend. Yet, she enjoys Joe's company. He makes her laugh and always finds ways to talk about her online friend, bringing a lightness to her days. Then one day, Kathleen receives a message from her online friend, Joe himself, saying, "Let's meet tomorrow at 4 p.m. I'll bring my dog along." Reading it fills her with happiness. The next day, she tells Joe about the plan. Joe, still keeping his secret, teases her playfully. What if he's short or overweight or has a huge mustache? Kathleen laughs. Before she leaves, Joe says softly, "If I hadn't been the reason your bookstore closed, would you have accepted my love? Would we have been together?" Kathleen doesn't respond. As she gets ready to go, Joe quietly adds, "You forgave the man who talked to you online, but you've never forgiven me." His words leave her speechless, and her eyes fill with tears. But her heart still longs for her online friend, so she walks away, leaving Joe behind. At exactly 4 p.m., Kathleen waits in the park, heart pounding. Then she sees Joe walking toward her. At first, she thinks it's a cruel joke, but when she sees the dog with him, just like in the message, it all becomes clear. Joe is her online friend. He stands silently in front of her, eyes filled with honesty. Tears well up in Kathleen's eyes. Gently, Joe wipes them and says, "Don't cry, shop girl." That was her screen name. Overwhelmed, Kathleen smiles through her tears and says, "For days I've been hoping that my friend, New York 152, would turn out to be you. And it really is you." With full hearts, they embrace one another. And just like that, Two souls who were unknowingly connected by words and feelings finally found their way to each other, beyond screens, beyond misunderstandings, and right into the warmth of real love. Sometimes the people meant for us are already closer than we think, just waiting for the right moment to be seen. If this story touched your heart, even a little, please consider supporting our channel by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Your support helps us bring more stories that make you feel, remember, and believe in love, in hope, and in the magic of connection. Thank you for being a part of this journey.